Chapter 16. Dress the Part. Despite Naomi's run-in with Martin, the Imperial agent had not shown himself again. It was possible the troop of sex workers that Jax had sicked on him in the Arboretum were still occupying him. She and Jax retired to the Osprey after their adventure aboard the Imperial ship. "You ready for today?" Naomi asked, as Jax walked across the common area toward the ship's head the next morning. He looked over his shoulder. "As ready as possible, I guess." He didn't slow down, closing the hatch behind him. Rudy rolled over. "I've arranged for the pickup in 10 minutes. Baxter is ready." Naomi nodded. "Okay, let's go get him situated." Down in the cargo hold, the tall, matte black combat droid was standing motionless in the middle of the space. When Naomi and Rudy arrived, he turned his head, red optical scatter light swishing left and right. "You better not forget me." Naomi pointed to a large open crate sitting next to the large cargo door. "Don't worry, we paid for return shipping just in case." She motioned. "In you go." They had fabricated the crate overnight. The interior was made to Baxter's exact measurements to help hold him firmly in place during transport. The droid stepped backwards into the crate, letting the interior conform to his arms, legs, and torso. "See you on the other side," he said, as Naomi hefted the front of the crate in place. Rudy quickly fastened the lid to the rest of the crate with the provided self-sealing stem bolts. "Skip," Naomi said. The large cargo door slid outward from the hull, then forward, exposing the domed docking bay beyond. With a loud whir, the thick cargo arm track slid out to its full extension, 3 meters. A powerful cargo grasper slid along the track until it was over the crate containing Baxter. It lowered, grabbed the crate, then retracted, raising the crate off the deck. The assembly slid along the extended arm until it reached the end and lowered the crate to the deck below, setting it down with barely a thud. As the entire assembly retracted back up and into the ship, a team of cargo movers arrived. From the large opening, Naomi waved. "Hi there, that's the one." She pointed to the crate. "Just this one?" the taller of the 2 cargo handlers asked, running a hand through his red hair. He pointed his other hand to the crate, directing a heavy cargo droid. The massive machine rolled over on thick treads, bending to lift Baxter's crate. The other human guided the droid back the way they had come. Naomi nodded. "Just the one, thanks." She retreated into the cargo hold, the heavy door sliding into place and sinking back into the hull. As Naomi cleared the staircase landing on the common deck, she spotted Jax walking back toward the crew bunks wrapped in a towel. She moved to the kitchenette to get a fresh cup of coffee. Jax re-emerged from the crew berth section a few minutes later. He was wearing what might have been the only pair of trousers he owned that had no patches on them. His shirt was clean and bore no logos. Over that he had a leather jacket she had seen him wear once or twice before. "Look at you," she said, making a show of looking him up and down. "So dapper." He smirked. "Figured I should look the part, right?" "No argument." She offered him a travel mug of coffee. "Ready?" In 2 bags, they carried the 5 tablets that Naomi had purchased the day before. Naomi had worked on the devices earlier, making sure they were ready. Arriving at the convention space, Jax was a little surprised that not only were there no Imperial security forces waiting for him, but Naomi's friend Martin was nowhere in sight. "Think your pal will come?" he asked. "He kind of has to, right? He knows we have the data. He can't let it fall into the wrong hands." "I guess we're lucky that this is so secret he can't just have a garrison of shock troops swarm all over us." "He doesn't have a garrison, so that helps," she replied. She looked around the small meeting room. At the far end was a table with lectern next to it. The rest of the room was empty. "Nice digs." They had just reached the table and lectern at the front of the room when 2 men in dark blue suits walked in. "Mr. Van Buren?" Jax thought for a moment, then nodded. He looked at Naomi. "Security. Licensed to carry heavy stun pistols." He motioned the 2 men over. "So, I just need you 2 to stand on either side of the table. Make sure no one picks the tablet up. They can see the file listing, but that's it. Got it, the more heavily muscled of the two said. Showtime. Naomi had invited 10 criminal organizations. 9 had replied in the affirmative. The 10th said nothing. The Crimson Orchid was among the 9 that had replied, which was good. In both of their ears, Skip said, "The agent just left the security substation." "Any sign he figured out where we are?" Naomi asked. "Well, he didn't look at the nearest camera and say, 'I know where they are, so I think you're good.'" The sapient intelligence that ran the Osprey replied. Jax and Naomi exchanged a look. Everyone arrived, promptly, and despite representing competing criminal enterprises, were cordial. A few of the representatives seemed to have legitimately friendly relationships with their rivals. Jax received 2 complaints regarding the lack of snacks or drinks, which he found beyond confusing, given the auction and its clients. "This isn't a social club," he whispered to Naomi, as a bald-headed man with a thick accent Jax couldn't place walked away after voicing his annoyance at the lack of alcohol. She shrugged. "They're all here." He cleared his throat. "Excuse me, everyone. Hi. Welcome." He looked over to Naomi, who rolled her eyes. "Thanks for coming. Please form a line. We've locked this tablet down, so all you can see are the file listings and a summary of the data. Everyone will have time to look it over before making your bid." As the various criminal organizations from around the Empire lined up, Jax continued. "This data is not available piecemeal. It's all or nothing. You can look through the file list as long as needed. After that, you can place your offer via the contact details in the initial invite." "Where is Joseph?" a woman near the back of the line asked. "I don't know about the rest of them, but I dislike dealing with people who aren't him." Jax coughed. "Yes, well, you're going to have to get used to it. He's dead." The room burst into shouts of surprise and anger. Jax held up both hands. "We didn't kill him." "How do we know that?" another woman asked. This one was dressed in a leather catsuit with a gun belt draped over her hip, the empty holster obvious. "How did you get our details if Joe is dead?" the dark-skinned man demanded. Jax made a face, looking at the woman first. "Well, you don't, I guess." He turned to the man. "Does it matter? You're welcome to leave if you have an issue here." He pointed at the tablet that as yet no one had approached. "We're getting a little off track. If you don't want to bid on these files, by all means." He pointed to the door at the back of the room. "There's the door. I'm sure your competitors can find a use for higher throughput long-range comms or high-compression wormhole tech." The man at the head of the line jumped ahead to the table, leaning down to examine the files. An hour after Jax and Naomi departed for the auction, Rudy left the ship. "Wish me luck," he beamed to Skip as he exited the lift at the deck of the security substation. "You won't need luck. You'll be with me," Baxter replied before Skip could. "Just as soon as you come get me." Rudy rolled over to the storage unit he had rented the night before. He keyed in the passcode and rolled backward as the segmented door slid upward. Inside the 2-meter wide by 3-meter deep storage unit stood a single 2.5-meter tall crate. Rudy scanned the area. No one around. He rolled into the storage unit. From a storage compartment in his cylindrical body, he withdrew a pry bar. The self-sealing stem bolt popped off with little effort. Baxter moved both arms in a slow circle, looking down at his partner in crime. "You ready?" he asked in his deep baritone. The much shorter droid said, "What could go wrong?" The combat droid nodded. "Exactly." He stomped out of the storage unit, Rudy on his heels. "Can you get into the substation's systems?" Baxter sent to Skip. "Negative. He has completely rewritten the software of the local processing cores," Skip replied. "I'm locked out. For that matter, so is the rest of the station." "Old school it is. He's still out and about?" Baxter asked. "He is." The two-droid heist team moved to the corridor and the reinforced hatch to the security substation. Rudy offered his pry bar, only to have his taller companion wave it off. Baxter forced his fingertips into the seam of the hatch. Metal groaned as the hatch bent and separated. Sales hustle. One of the Crimson Orchid men that Naomi and Jax had run into earlier looked up from the tablet. "How do we know this is real? You don't exactly have a stellar reputation." Jax glared at the man as he raised a hand, with one finger pointed up. "Hey, your boss is a liar. Ichiko tried to set us up, have us killed." Jax waved off the man's rebuttal. "Maybe this will help." He picked up the tablet, tapping on the screen. He offered the device to the man. On the screen was one of the least dangerous things he and Naomi had found in the files they stole: plans for a more efficient mid-level ship reactor. Almost twice the output as what was currently on the market, yet requiring less than 20% less reaction mass. The man studied the tablet, then looked up at Jax. "You make sure we get this, and I can make sure Mr. Ichiko calls us off." He leaned forward. "All of us." He smiled, and not at all even close to a friendly smile, as he handed the tablet back to Jax. The Crimson Orchid goon moved away from the table to talk excitedly with his companions. The other groups looked at the tablet in turn. Each asked questions that Jax and Naomi answered as truthfully as possible. Most groups drifted toward the door, leaving after viewing the tablet. As each group departed, Jax reminded them where to send their bids. "You had better hurry," Skip sent. The two pieces of the hatch slid apart with a final groan. Baxter's powerful grip had pressed into the metal, deforming both pieces. At the far end of the space, Jeffrey and Governor Singh were standing at the bars watching. Rudy rolled past Baxter. "Hello, Governor. Jeffrey." "Well, it's about time," the governor groused. "I thought Jackson had left us here to rot."
"You've only been in custody a day and a half," Baxter replied, walking into the substation.
His sensors immediately cataloged everything in the space: weapons locker, secure processing cores, workstations. "You harsh robot," the aged Indian woman said, and wagged a finger at the menacing combat droid. She then added, "But hurry up, rip these bars open." Baxter made a noise that Rudy knew to be his version of a sigh. The bars should have presented less of a problem than the hatch, except that as Baxter approached, a low hum appeared in the air. Red lights in the corners of the substation came to life, strobing. The substation was nothing more than a long rectangular space, desks in the front for those assigned to the station, a small closet off to one side that served as the armory, and the detention cells against the back wall. 3 of them. Only the center cell had occupants.
"Step back,"
Baxter snapped a moment before arcs of static electricity moved along the length of the bars. Governor Singh and Jeffrey let go of the bars, stepping back with barely a second to spare. Rudy's head made 2 full rotations, taking in the scene. "That's a lot of current." Baxter said nothing, nodding. "Well?" the angry old woman demanded, tapping a foot on the floor. Rudy moved to the wall that would back up to the recently renovated corridor outside. One of his circular sensor arrays shifted colors quickly as he scanned the wall. He rolled backwards, then pointed. "There." "There what?" Governor Singh and Baxter asked in unison. "Blast, there." The nav droid turned to the 2 humans. "Get down." Jeffrey and the governor got down on the ground, the younger man sort of covering his employer. The metal of Baxter's back shifted and whirred, freeing the twin railguns. They clicked into place, a low whine building from within the combat droid's torso as the weapon's supercapacitors charged. Without warning, each powerful weapon barked once. The sound of fast discharge capacitors dumping their energy faded quickly. The wall that Rudy had pointed at was now a smoking ruin. Sparks erupted from ruined conduits. Water trickled out of a wastewater supply line, filling the substation with a stench that sent Jeffrey to the small privacy field surrounding the toilet. The red emergency lighting had died. As his railguns folded back into his pack, Baxter reached the cell and grasped the bars. With a single pull, he yanked the cell door from its frame. "Let's go," he said, dropping the door with a clang.